So President Biden just delivered remarks about the midterm election results and said it was a good day for democracy.
Our democracy has been tested in recent years, but with their votes, the American people have spoken and proven once again that democracy is who we are. The states across the country saw a record voter turnout, and the heart and soul of our democracy, the voters, the poll workers, the election officials, they did their job and they fulfilled their duty, and apparently without much interference at all.
And for more, I'm joined by White House correspondent for Reuters, Jeff Mason, who is with us from the North Lawn of the White House. Hi, Jeff. Good to see you there.
You too,
a pretty lengthy press conference from the president before he heads abroad, but after these election results that many had forecasted to be pretty tough for him and his party, turns out that did not quite materialize, at least at this point. What were some of the takeaways that you heard from the president?
Well, for sure, one of the takeaways was the clip that you just played, that he said he thought this was good for democracy. That was a sign that he thought his final message about democracy probably made an impact. There were even some Democrats who were suggesting that him doing a speech at Union Station in D.C. just a few days before the midterms talking about the threats to democracy wasn't a great idea. Well, exit polls showed that democracy and abortion rights were definitely on the top of mind for many Democratic voters. So that was one of the takeaways. I think another big takeaway was he was asked whether he plans to run for re-election. And that's a question that had to be asked after the midterms, and one that he'll need to decide on in the coming months. And he said he still intends, he does intend to run. He said we intend to run. He was referring to his wife, Jill. And he said that he'll probably make a final decision on that by the beginning of next year.
Yeah, Jeff, I think that was going to be one of the big questions, regardless of the outcome of this midterm election. But it does appear that since Democrats may not have done as poorly as expected, may give him perhaps a little more momentum. We'll see. The biggest question, however, is whether and how the Republican majority will work or not work with this administration. What did he say about this kind of new reality, essentially, that he will be entering into in January, where Republicans in the House with a majority, even a slim one, can do a lot to block his agenda?
For sure, and you're spot on to say it's a new reality. It's not maybe as bad of a reality as some were anticipating it would be, but Republicans certainly look likely to have control of the House, and that means they can start investigations of President Biden, of some of his policy decisions, of his son Hunter. All of those things are things that they have flagged, and he addressed a question about that today. He said the American people would see that for what it is, and he said that he called that at times comedy, and then said he had no control over it, but his job was just to keep working for the American people. I think that's a foreshadowing of how he and White House officials will handle that. But to your broader question, Caitlin, he also said he's prepared to work with Republicans, and he said he would be speaking with Mr. McCarthy probably later today and inviting Republican and Democratic leaders to the White House after he returns from Asia. He put down a few red lines. He said that he would veto any efforts to ban abortion nationwide and would not support tax cuts for the wealthy and for corporations, but in large part said he was willing to work with them, but also said that he believed Americans had shown they want Republicans to work with him as well.
And Jeff, as I mentioned, he is preparing to go abroad in about 24 hours or so. Did he talk about the kind of impact that the election results might have as he prepares to engage in some of these high-stakes conversations with world leaders?
Well, I think it probably buoys him on this trip for sure, and he talked a little bit about that trip and spoke about Ukraine and his determination to continue to fund Ukraine. He mentioned that President Putin of Russia is not going to be at the G20. He talked a little bit about Taiwan policy. So many of the things that are foreign policy challenges will be on his agenda for this trip. And to your question, I think going on that trip after an election that did not turn out to be a shellacking, as President Obama called the midterm elections of 2010, is certainly a good thing for him.
Well, Jeff Mason in the room where it happens, as always, we thank you for your time and reporting.
Thank you.